Hey, howdy, hey, me hearties, Wolfman47 here. So originally the plan for today was to talk about the multiverse that apparently was established with Buffy and Angel, you know, the Joss Whedon TV shows from way back when. And after doing some research and looking into it, as it turns out, it's only like two universes, like the canon universe and the and then a parallel universe, which is something that a lot of franchises like that have delved into previously. So on that basis, I felt it wasn't really sufficient enough to do a full video on, so I decided I'm not going to bother with that. The chances are that there probably is a multiverse featuring characters and elements from Buffy and Angel, but I've just not seen it. So instead, I'm going to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean, considering that there's been some bit of news about it that a lot of people are not really sure how to make of it. But anyway, so I'll start by talking about the ride. Now, as we all know, the Pirates of the Caribbean films were heavily inspired by the Disneyland ride that it's primarily based on, which, as far as I'm aware, it itself might be based on a novel or book. I went on two versions of the ride, the Disneyland California one and the Disneyland Paris one, and both of them, while obviously different, you know, location-wise and stuff that they can do, they are very similar in the sense that it's not really like a typical water ride. You're sitting on a boat, sure, but you're pretty much experiencing scenes taking place from the book or various adventures featuring pirates. Obviously, nowadays it would feature scenes from the films, but before the films were even a thing, I went on these two rides with my parents and my sister. May she rest in peace. And yeah, we really enjoyed them. I'm usually not one to rate rides, but because it is a film franchise based on rides, I will rate both rides a solid 10 out of 10, because it's not often you see a water ride that's not really like a typical water ride where stuff happens and then you get splashing and everything. Yes, there is some slides and some splashing and everything, but it's not like huge amounts or a big deal. It's more of a sort of gentle rides that you can just experience different scenes from, which yes, I know, funny because it is a piratey ride, so you'd expect a bit more than that, but you know, it's weird, and people do like relaxing rides and that, so yeah. So then a few years later, we had the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. Now, at this point with Disney, they were considering a lot of different rides and attractions for feature films, and although they did find some, and although the Pirates of the Caribbean films ended up being a huge success in the end, films that came after that based on rides would not work out so well. But with the first Pirates of the Caribbean, I missed it at the cinema, but my dad got it as a gift from someone some time ago. We watched it and we really liked it. So what's it about? Well, obviously we know what it's about. It's pirates that are based in the Caribbean. So yeah, you know, the title's very obvious what it is about. But in this first film, The Curse of the Black Pearl, we see this character called Will Turner, played by Orlando Bloom, getting shipwrecked. He gets I don't know what the word is, picked up by a ship. He befriends this girl called Elizabeth Swan and brought back to Port Royal, which is this British colony in the Caribbean, and he's basically put to work as a blacksmith. Little do we know that he's actually probably secretly a pirate. And then a bunch of shenanigans happen. He presents a sword to the governor, played by Jonathan Pryce, and then various shenanigans happen, including Captain Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp, trying to find a way inside Port Royal and get a ship so he can get revenge on this rebellion crew of his that's headed by Captain Barbossa, played by Jeffrey Rush. And by doing that, he gets captured. Fights Will Turner, and then other things happen. The Captain Barbossa's crew arrive. They kidnap Elizabeth Swan under the assumption that she's related to the Turner family, who are apparently meant to be these people that can break the curse that they have. Will Turner tries to find help in trying to rescue her and ends up teaming up with Captain Jack Sparrow. They break him out of jail. They go on a ship. They find a crew at Tortuga, which is like this lawless island where no law is around. You can have all party and everything. They come across Mr. Gibbs, and I know I know his name is a funny name. I forget the actor's name, so I'll leave it in the edit. And you know, all this stuff happens, and it's pretty much basically a very typical party adventure. Usually most people would expect these sorts of films to be about buried treasure and anything, but no, they actually do delve into it. They give us some mythos and all sorts of things, and I really enjoyed it. One thing I didn't quite pick up on with this first film is that it had a post-credit scene, and when it came out, post-credit scenes were a thing that not many films were really sort of doing. Usually most films would be happy just having an ending that sort of leaves it ambiguous or whatever for future sequels. But on this occasion, there was in fact a post-credit scene, which would lead into what would be the sequels, which I'll get to in a little while. But before that, let's rate the film. Now, as I'm now using Power Director to edit my videos now, I've still experimented on it, and I don't yet know if there is a thing similar to what I was using on Clipchamp where I can give it a rating out of 5 stars. So instead I'm just going to rate it out of 10, and for this first Pirates of the Caribbean film I'm going to rate it a solid 9 out of 10 because I really enjoyed it. It was a great introduction to the series, and you know, at the time I hoped it got better, but no, it kind of slowly declined in quality, but we'll get to that in a moment. So yeah, that's what I think of Curse of Black Pearl. So let's move on to the sequel. So for the next two films, Jerry Bruckheimer, who's the executive producer of the films and also uses his production company to help move it forward, he felt that he and the team that were writing it felt that the sequel should really be 2 films because it was just too big to feature in one film. So the second and third film ended up being like a 2-part film, although no one would really know that because they didn't have like part 1 or part 2 on them. And I'll be honest, I didn't actually know if it was going to be like a 2-part film, but obviously when we found out at the end that it was going to be a 2-part film, I was surprised. But anyway, so in this film, a guy called Lord Cutler Beckett, again, forget the name of the actor, so I'll leave it in the edit. He arrives in Port Royal to arrest William Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Captain Jack Sparrow for the various shenanigans that they've got up to on the sea, against this company called the East India Trading Company. As it turns out, Captain Jack Sparrow is well and truly missing, and the guy that was assigned to go capture him has also gone missing. So Lord Cutler Beckett sends William out to find Jack Sparrow and basically either bring him back, or if not bring him back, bring one of his possessions back, which he decides he should bring back this compass that points him into the direction where things need to happen. As it turns out, Captain Jack Sparrow and crew tried to find this key of sorts, but wound themselves up on an island where all these tribesmen are trying to worship Jack Sparrow and all sorts of stuff happen. But thanks to Will Turner's interference, he manages to rescue the crew. 2 of Barbossa's men, I forget the actor's name, but one of them is in Once Upon a Time, and the other one has appeared in the UK version of The Office, and they were in the first film as well. Joined the crew, and together initially Jack wants the compass, but Will Turner wants the compass, but then Jack decides he needs something of Will, and as it turns out, Jack Sparrow owes a debt to the legendary Davy Jones, played by Bill Nighy. So yeah, and instead of sorting his debt out, he sends out Will Turner to sort things out, and this leads to a reunion with his father, Bill Turner, played by Stellan Skarsgård. I think that's his name. Yeah. A lot of things happen in a too short space of time in this film. But of all the things to go to in this first sequel, I actually do kind of like the design of Davy Jones, and I know I'm not the only one. You see, a lot of Davy Jones and his crew are obviously motion captured, so obviously everything you see on them is not exactly there, it's just motion capture, but the way Davy Jones looks is amazing. He's got a octopus face, he's got this giant crab claw for a hand. He can't walk on land, and has good reason why he can't. And obviously he's a very intimidating villain, but also a very tragic villain as well. So it's kind of no surprise that this person that was once a man ended up being the monster that you see in the film. and a lot of his crew, with the exception of Bill Turner to an extent, sort of shows how far they've come as his crew and so forth. Yeah, it kind of feels like there's a bit of a element of fantasy into this series now that Davy Jones is involved. So yeah, I think in terms of how I feel about the film, I think it is pretty good. I think it's good visually, and I do like how Davy Jones is just like a villain that really just wants his debt to be paid and will stop at nothing to do that, even if it means calling out his beast, the Kraken, to do just that. I felt it was a good sequel. I don't think it was like a strong sequel, but I felt it was a good enough sequel, thanks in part to Bill Nye's performance as Davy Jones, and the fact that it has a lot of stakes that are high, and making out that maybe being a pirate isn't exactly a bad thing, as it turns out, because we find out that the East India Trading Company are bad guys as well, and we also learn that that Jonathan Price, the governor, has no power over the East India Trading Company, and therefore he's also captured, and other things go on as well. So yeah, it's all happening in this one. But I did enjoy it, and I think it does have a lot of things going for it. So I'm gonna give it I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I thought it was okay for what it was. So yeah. Now we come to probably the most complicated film of the series, At World's End. So the third film, so 3 films in, and this is the one where things get a bit serious and a bit complicated. So, without giving too much away, something happens to Captain Jack Sparrow in the previous film, and the Black Pearl crew, who also lose the Black Pearl as a result, set out to try and rescue him, because as it turns out, he is one of these 9 pirate lords that have this thing called a piece of 8, which is a common piratey term, but not many of us know what that really means. But as it turns out, it's just an item that pirate lords have, and they give it when they often meet if certain events occur. But anyway, so they enlist the help of a revived Barbossa, spoilers, who helps them set out to find Jack Sparrow, bring him back, and then this leads into a chain of events where they enter Davy Jones's locker. They have an encounter with the East India Trading Company again, as well as a pirate lord that probably has the most screen time out of all the different pirate lords, aside from Barbossa Captain Jack Sparrow, and Elizabeth Swann, who eventually becomes a pirate lord herself later on in the film. Which I won't say how she does because spoilers and that. And I know it's a film that's been out for ages, but yeah. And then this leads into a pretty spectacular, but probably a CGI overkill event in which the Flying Dutchman, so David Jones's ship, and the Black Pearl go to lead the sort of charge in the war between the East India Trading Company and pirates, and they both ships end up in a maelstrom, and basically all the big major characters are fighting one another, leading into a lot of events occurring, such as Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann getting married because they don't know if they're going to survive this. Captain Jack Sparrow finding Davy Jones's chest that suddenly has his heart because he wants to kill him. But as it turns out, Will Turner also has a reason to kill him as well. And yeah, all sorts of things occur in this big epic fight, and in the end, it kind of ends the way most people would expect it to go. And obviously, if you've seen the film enough times, you'll know how it goes. But I will say, I think it was right for the filmmakers to sort of make Cutler Beckett and David Jones switch roles. So in the previous film, David Jones is the main antagonist, whereas Cutler Beckett is the secondary antagonist, whereas it's role reverse in this film, because as it turns out, Cutler Beckett has the better hands than David Jones, because David Jones is simply a slave to Cutler Beckett, as he has possession of his heart. Meaning that if he falls out of line, he could just kill him at any point. And because David Jones has control of the seas, that means Cutler Beckett gets control of the seas as well. So yeah, that means he's basically the much greater antagonist. And And yeah, so I think overall this second film does sort of wrap a lot of loose ends up, and even though it is complicated and some people accuse it of being more serious than the other films, it does feature some comedy in there as well. It's and also Cliff Richards, who is this big rock star from whichever band he's from. He makes an appearance as Jack Sparrow's father, so it's interesting. So yeah, I think overall this is an okay sequel, but it's definitely one that's gonna make people a lot of scratch heads, and it's definitely a film that you probably would need to watch quite a few times in order to understand everything. I, for one, had to watch it quite a few times before I could figure out everything. So on that basis, I'm gonna give it a respectable 7 out of 10 as well. So that's kind of it for the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, because these next two films I don't really like to count them as part of it because they don't really lead to anywhere, and they're just there for the sake of filler, I think. But I'll talk about them anyway, because for all we know, you might like them too. So the first one is, and I'm hoping I remember what it's called. Oh yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. So this fourth one, Blackbeard's in this. Yeah. So Mr. Gibbs and Jack Sparrow find themselves in London, of all places, and they get out of London and come into conflict with Blackbeard, who's trying to find this Fountain of Youth, which was something that was hinted at the end of the previous film. So they set out to find the Fountain of Youth. They come across Penelope Cruz. Things happen, and yada yada yada. I don't really like talking about this film or the next film very much, so I'm just gonna say that I don't think it's very good. It's definitely comedic, and it's definitely got some good things in it, but for a film that just feels like it just isn't really needed. It feels like it's just trying to fill time, fill the gap, and just as an excuse for Disney to release another sequel to one of their big franchises, because that's what they love doing. They like releasing new films based on pre-established franchises because they think anything new nowadays is just not good enough. So yeah, so I'm gonna give On Stranger Tides a 6 out of 10. I thought it was okay, but I thought it was okay, and I think it is acted well by all the people involved. It's just feels like it's just a waste of time, talent, and everything. So that's how I feel about that. And now we come to what is currently the final film of the franchise, and probably will be the final film for quite a long time yet, unless Disney decide that they would like to continue it and actually make it official and not just say they will or won't and all that. But anyway, I know this is known as something else in other parts of the world, but here in the UK it's called Salazar's Revenge. So, as it turns out, there was a man called Salazar who was also after Captain Jack Sparrow, and Captain Jack Sparrow got the better of him and so forth, which led to him being a sort of ghostly character. And then cut to years later, Jack Sparrow's up to his old tricks again, and he comes into conflict with Barbossa again, although by this point, in both the previous film and this film, Barbossa and him are friends again. And they manage to revive the Black Pearl. Other things happen as well. And I just don't remember it that well. I know Paul McCartney made a cameo in it, I believe, as well, as Jack Sparrow's uncle, I think. I don't know, but yeah. It's not a great sequel, and it feels like they're trying to bring back... they also brought back Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley in their respective roles as Will Turner and Elizabeth Turner now, for reals this time. And yeah, it just doesn't feel great seeing this film, you know, because again, it feels like it's a filler film. It feels like it's not really leading into anywhere, but at least it does resolve the thing about the Black Pearl. And even with the post-credits scene hinting that David Jones might be returning, I just feel, do we really want that? Do people really want to see another film with David Jones? Don't get me wrong, I think David Jones is a great character. I think he's probably the most well-developed character, most interesting character in Pirates of the Caribbean, for sure. But I'm not sure if I'd want to see him again, because didn't he die in, like, A World's End? Spoilers. But anyway, I'm going to give this film, with a heavy heart, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, because I just didn't like it too much, and I feel very mixed about how I feel the franchise should go after that. But yeah, that's what I think about the Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise. I don't know if we will get another film. If we do, I hope it has a reason to exist and is not there for the sake of getting money in and so forth. But yeah, and screw you, Amber Heard. That jar of dirt, that jar of cannabis that you think he has is a jar of dirt. So screw you. Yeah, I usually don't do hate speech or whatever to people, but Amber Heard is definitely someone that I don't particularly like very much. So yeah, and she did go out with Johnny Depp at one point. So yeah, but yeah, that's what I think about Pirates of the Caribbean, the films and the rides. And I know it has made some appearance in video games as well, but if I ever decide to talk about those video games, that'll be for another time, because they were kind of video games that were shared with other Disney properties. So yeah, but anyway, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my regularly uploaded videos. I do vlogs like this where I talk about things that are in pop culture or just anything that interests me, talk about life in general, show things off in hauls, review things, and other things on that front as well. I also do gameplay videos where it's straight up gameplay and some editing and some memes thrown in, but other than that, no commentary, nothing else. Let's play videos where it's the opposite, gameplay but with commentary and you hear my voice and everything. I also sometimes play games with other people as well. At the time of doing this vlog, I'm in the process of working with a few friends on our second attempt to play Marvel Rivals, because our first attempt was good, but Clipchamp really screwed up on the audio sync, and hence was the main reason why I moved to Powered Director. So I'm hoping it will be okay there, but we'll see. So that's what I do. Also shorts that are usually random, but often have a reason for existing. So usually to celebrate an anniversary or birthday of a thing or person I like. So yep, that's what I do. If you enjoyed this video, then please smash the like button, share with your pals, leave a comment, and if you are subscribed or have just clicked the subscribe button, remember to hit the bell icon so you get notified when I release new videos. So that's what I do. See you in the next one. Peace to you all, and remember that it's not always a bad thing to be a pirate. Yes, they may be frowned upon, but it's not always a bad thing if you are a pirate in a legal sense. So cosplay as a pirate, play a pirate video game, or play an actual pirate game. But don't do piracy in real life, because it's just very frowned upon. So yeah, right. Toodles.
It is my intention to commandeer one of these ships, pick up a crew and Tortuga, raid, pillage, plunder and otherwise pilfer my Weasley black guts out.